So we are now in Genesis chapter 29. So if you have your Bibles, your smartphones, your whatever you're using to tune it in, you can proceed to chapter 29. You know, this story just keeps getting better and better. You know, Steve was kind of a little bit envious. He thought, oh, you know, you get to do the good chapter. I wanted to do 29. It's just there's so much in this, you know, a bit of romance, you know. And I said, yeah, no, I'm kind of like, yeah, I can kind of relate to this, you know, being in love, being married. So,
You can kind of relate.
Yes. I'll wait till we're done. We haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet. I got a feeling that tonight I'm going to have, it might be a long evening of trying to explain myself. At least I hope I told you all my deep, dark secrets about the women I've known. Anyway, where are we going with this? It's just too crazy. Anyway, so as a matter of recap, you may recall Jacob's on the run. You know, he's got his brother, you know, kind of a little bit kicked at him and gunning to kill him. And so, you know, he's basically getting out of Dodge. And he's on the run. And he comes to this place called Luz, and, you know, kind of in the middle of nowhere, and basically just a barren wasteland. And he has a profound dream, and Steve went through this last week, where God appears to him and kind of puts everything in perspective. You know, our circumstances in life can sometimes seem overwhelming, and I think sometimes because it's what our flesh can see, it's what we deal with, what we can, you know, see with our eyes. And God, He never leaves us. He's always there, but we just seem to be wanting to reach for everything else. You know, we want to do it ourselves, you know. And so his mindset, I would rather think, is he's, you know, he's concerned. He's afraid. But the Lord appears to him. And God says, you know, I got this. You know, basically, Jacob, everything's going to be fine. God reminds him, I am the Lord God of Abraham your father and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie I will give to you and your descendants. Also, your descendants shall be as the dust of the earth. You shall spread abroad to the west and the east, to the north and the south, and in you and in your seed all the families of the earth will be blessed. So, God has reminded him of this covenant that he has made with him. And so, in my mind, I'm kind of thinking, well, you know, I'm kind of thinking, well, I guess, you know, Jacob or Esau is going to kill me. How can he kill me? I'm going to be patriarch, and I'm going to be, through me, the blessings of the whole world are going to happen. So he awakes, and he worships God, sets up an altar, you know, pours oil in it. He confesses that, you know, God is in this place, and I knew it not. In other words, he came there, he's just freaked out, doesn't know anything about, you know, where God is, but God has now said, here, I'm right here. And so as we proceed now into this next chapter, and as this whole thing unfolds, Jacob's perspective on life has dramatically been altered here. And I think we're going to kind of see him progress as God now has confirmed this in him. Now he's starting to work in him, and we're going to see a change of him in his life and in his attitudes as we work through this. So starting in verse 29, or chapter 29, verse 1. So Jacob went on his journey and came to the land of the people of the east. So now he's in Mesopotamia. He's back to where the whole thing started with Abraham. He's back to his people, if you like. So this would be like a 500-mile journey. And, you know, according to Google Maps, that would be like walking from here to Vancouver, if you want to put everything in perspective, about 500 miles. So he's walking along, and he looked and saw a well in the field, and behold, there were 3 flocks of sheep lying by it, for out of that well they watered the flocks. A large stone was on the well's mouth. Now all the flocks would be gathered there, and they would roll the stone from the well's mouth, water the sheep, and put the stone back in its place on the well's mouth. So he's walking along, comes across this well, and as we all know, water is extremely important, unless of course you live in Vancouver and it always seems to be raining. But, oh my brother, you're probably going to hear that, well, sorry to hear it. You know, in that part of the world, water, they have to manage it because it is a rare commodity. So apparently, the flocks are starting to gather there. These shepherds are gathering the sheep there. And there's this large stone on this well. So in my mind, I'm kind of thinking, this isn't really kind of like a well I'm familiar with. I mean, when we were in Fernie, we had a well, and it was, I guess not an overly deep well, but it was 165 feet down. And it only produced about 4 gallons a minute, so it was kind of different coming from the city. But the water's in the ground, you got to pump it up, right? It's kind of the way I kind of think a well works, right? Well, this, to me, seems more like a sort of a natural kind of underground spring where the water kind of bubbles up and it comes out. And maybe because they want to keep the water back, they put a rock on a big stone to keep it back so that when the sheep come, they open it up, it gushes out, and before it has a chance to soak into the ground, they can water their flocks. So anyway, these guys are gathered here, and so Jacob, you know, naturally, he sees these guys, he gets a conversation going, and he says, you know, my brethren, where are you from? Sort of a welcoming thing, like, so where exactly am I? Who are you guys? You know, he couldn't exactly check his smartphone and his GPS and say, oh yeah, I'm in Haran now, everything's cool, I just gotta go check on my uncle and everything will be good. No, he's basically engaging these people, and they say to him, we are from Haran. Then he said to them, do you know Laban, the son of Nahor? Knowing that it was his uncle he was searching for, he asks him, he just says, do you know this guy? You know, I mean, you live around here. And they said, we know him. And he said to them, is he well? And they said, he is well. And look, Rachel, his daughter, is coming with the sheep. Now, knowing what we're going to learn about Laban, you got to kind of think that maybe these guys, these shepherds or whatever, have been involved with this guy. They know his character, and it's like, yeah, we know him. I don't think you really want to know that guy, kind of thing. You know, I mean, after all, Laban turns out to be quite the character here. So he said, is he well? And they said, he is well. And look, his daughter Rachel is coming with the sheep. So this is the first chance that Jacob actually gets to see Rachel. And as we're going to get into this, he's quite taken by her beauty. And so the plot gets a little more interesting here. So then he said, look, this is Jacob now speaking to these shepherds. Look, it is still high day. It is not time for the cattle to be gathered together. Water the sheep and go and feed them. You kind of get the feeling here that, you know, now having seen Rachel and all these other guys in the scene, he's kind of like wants to clear the field a little bit, you know, get a little one-on-one time, and he's more or less accusing them, you know, you guys, what are you doing here so early? Get the heck out of here, you know, blah, blah, blah. And maybe they're kind of waiting too, because they want to wait for Rachel to come here, and they want to maybe have a little chit-chat with her or whatever, but they're all gathering there. But they answered and said, we cannot until all the flocks are gathered together and they have rolled the stone from the well's mouth, then we water the sheep. So they've got this program in place basically where they gather and they got to gather, they got to wait till everybody's together. They talk about you know, until they have come to roll the stone away. So maybe they need an extra manpower to help with this stone or whatever. But anyway, they're gathering there, and no, it's not going to work that way. We're here. We're going to wait. We're going to roll the stone away. Now, while he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. Now, shepherdess, it's kind of I don't want to sound sexist, but in that part of the world, it would be a common thing for girls and women to look after the sheep and stuff like that. When I was a little boy, I was, I guess, about 5 years old, and I had the opportunity to go with my mom. Opportunity, I had to go pretty much. But to take the train and go visit my aunt. And my aunt lived in a farm in southern Alberta here, just outside of Coldale, you know where I'm talking, kind of in that area, right? And she had 10 kids, okay, big family, instant workforce, right? But my mom being the youngest of the sisters, I was sort of like, there was like 7 of them older than me, some of them quite a bit older than me. But there was one that was younger than me, and then these 2 twins that were the same age as me, and everybody had a job. It was like crazy, like we'd wake up in the morning and my aunt would come and say, okay, David and Mark, you guys go and collect the eggs, because that's what they do. And then they look at me and go, well, Loretta, you might as well tag along too. And I go, you want to get the eggs? Well, there's your refrigerator, where do eggs come from, right? Last time I got eggs, I just got them from the store. Or my mom got them from the store. But anyway, so we got to go in the hen house there, ruffle up all the hens and grab all the eggs and stuff like that and go in. But everybody has a job, no matter how old you are. They got the cows to milk, and they got the stalls to muck or demuck or whatever they call that. Anyway, lots of work to be done. So, according to the story here, it's just the 2 girls. So I don't know. They don't say exactly what Leah was up to, but I'm sure she had some responsibilities herself. So anyway, Rachel's looking after the sheep. So she comes there, gathers them up, and gets her sheep watered. Now, while he was still speaking with them, oh yeah, we did that. Okay, yeah. So she's a shepherdess. And it came to pass, when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his uncle, mother's brother, uncle, and the sheep of Laban, his uncle, that Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban and his mother's brother. So here we kind of get the impression that, maybe it's kind of a macho thing. Maybe he's got a chance to impress Rachel, and so he wants to do the macho thing. You guys maybe don't know anything about that yet, but that's coming. So anyway, so basically, he kind of pushes the little guys aside and said, you guys just go sit out this one, I'll deal with this. So anyway, he rolls the stone away. So basically the sheep get watered. So then Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. Now, I don't know about that. I have a hard time with that. Now I can see kissing her. I get that. Remember the first time I kissed Angelica, it was quite monumental. But I don't exactly recall raising my voice and weeping.
Maybe it was a happy cry.
Maybe it wasn't happy. Well, actually, I did cry once when I was kissing. Oh boy, this is where it gets really deep here. But I'm going to tell this for the young guys here, so they don't make the same mistake I made. Because we want to, you want to remember this story. This is a good one. This is a real good one. It was the time when we were dating, and Angelique was going through her thing with her schooling, her nursing. And as was her custom, she would spend a lot of time at Simon Fraser University, because she was in this basement suite, but it was always loud and noisy and all that, so she'd go there. So I thought, well, you know what, this is great. I got some time off here, I'm going to go visit her. So I drive up to SFU, and I come into the library, and looking around, there's not a whole lot of people in the place. It's a big place to begin with, but not a whole lot of people. And there's this girl, and she's got her back to me, right? And I'm thinking, well, that's Angelica. I knew from, I could stake my life on that. That's Angelica. So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to surprise her. It's going to be a really big surprise. So I kind of come in behind her, get my head around there and give a big kick, like right in the cheek. Just a real good one. And then, actually, to my horror, and the poor girl, anyway, she wasn't too devastated. I was like, oh boy, instant red. No, you're not Angelica. And who are you? And I said, I'm kind of like tongue-tied. All I could think of was saying, you don't have to worry. I don't have any diseases. You're going to be perfectly fine. Now you just got out there. There was that, but that was into that. That was into that time. So, lesson to be learned here, guys. If you're gonna kiss a girl, make sure you're looking at her face to face. Don't tell her all the problems you can run into. I was fortunate. She didn't
This
sue me
isn't
or
the
nothing.
first
I
time
mean,
Angelique was heard the story.
well, that's what I'm afraid of. You
Oh.
know, and that's what's going to happen when tonight we got a lot of explaining to do. Anyway, so Jacob now, he talks to Rachel, and Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's relative and that he was Rebekah's son. So she ran and told her father. Now, no doubt, because as we learned back in chapter 24, Laban knows about Abraham because after all, it was the servant that came, Eliezer, that came to get the wife. So when Eliezer came, he had 10 camels full of all kinds of, treasures and stuff like that. And so Laban got, some of that, and the family got some of that, which is customary in their culture, would be to have a dowry. Because when you marry the girl, you give a dowry to the father with the idea if something happens to you, whatever, you're killed or there's a divorce or something like that. The woman, the wife, has some kind of financial support. So the idea is the father looks after the dowry. Okay, that's the way it's supposed to work. So no doubt they had stories around the kitchen table about how this whole thing happened, how, Eliezer come and her aunt Rebecca, because it's her aunt that we're talking about here, how the whole thing would have played out in that. So in her mind, she's probably thinking, oh, okay, so now you're her son. Okay, I get it. Okay, cool. So anyway, it came to pass when Laban heard the report about Jacob, his sister's son, so it's his nephew, that he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. So no doubt Laban now is thinking, hey, this is exciting. I get to meet this Jacob, my nephew, who he's never met before. And maybe he's also thinking that maybe there's more things, treasures to be found. But anyway, so he runs out to meet him, he's excited, he embraces him, and he kisses him. Well, now there again, I got to tell you this other story. I don't know. It's amazing that I don't have some psychological issues with things, but kissing in most parts of the world is actually a normal kind of a thing when people get together, men and women and all this, they do this. In fact, when we were in Peru, and Ryan said to me before we went through, he said, okay, Dad, there's one thing you and Mom have to know about the culture here is, Dad, you got to kiss the women, and Mom, you got to kiss the men and the women. And I'm thinking, well, okay, what do I do with that? I mean, I don't know, what do you mean kiss? Like, what are we talking here? And he goes, well, and then he demonstrated on Angelica how the whole thing works and how you kind of go cheek to cheek and you go in the ear, right? And you get that up sound, right? And so we had practice, right? Because obviously, you want to get it right. You don't want to hit too hard. You want to just come in really good. You want to make sure you shave that day so you're nice and smooth. So anyway, so we're practicing, and Joaquin walks in. Oh, he's just cracked up. He is the funniest thing because it's his culture. He knows all about it, but we're just kind of, oh, sorry, dear. Oh, yeah, that was a little bit too hard. And anyway, so kissing is very important. But the story I really want to share about this whole kissing thing. I know I'm talking a lot about kissing. But anyway, when I met her family, we're serious now. We're going to be getting married, and Angelica says, "Well, one thing about my grandfather, you got to really understand. When you meet him, give him a firm handshake." I said, "Hey, no problem. I got that nailed. That's the way I was brought up. That's what all our family did. We never got past the handshake part. Forget about hugging and all that, kissing stuff. That just wasn't going to happen." But anyway, I thought, okay, that's cool. I can do this. So I walk up to him, and he's like, he's quite a bit shorter than me, and I'm thinking, oh man, he's in his 70s, poor guy. He might be a little frail. I better make sure I kind of go at this a little bit easy. Well, so anyway, I approach him, and I reach up my hand. He grabs my hand, pulls me in, squeezes almost the air out of my lungs, and next thing I know, it's a kiss on both cheeks. And I'm got this, eyes like headlights of deer, and I'm just blown away, just totally out of shock. And look at Angela, he says, well, I forgot to mention the part, he's half Russian too. But anyway, yeah, like I said, I got a crazy background, this whole thing. Anyway, so they're kind of hit it off here. They're you know, recounting old times and catching up with each other's lives. And Laban said to him, surely you are my bone and my flesh. And he stayed with him for about a month. So a month now has transpired from the time he first laid eyes on Rebecca. No, not Rebecca. Wrong generation. On Rachel. I'm sorry about that. And so he's living there, and he's probably working, probably helping out around the place. So Laban said to Jacob, because you are my relative, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what should your wages be? Now, okay, so he's been there with a month. He's been working, helping out a little bit. And he comes across with, well, you know, let's negotiate something here. Now, if you know anything about negotiating, the biggest thing is to get the other guy to commit first, right? I mean, if you can get the other guy to commit first, you have nothing to lose. Because if the other guy comes in lower than you want, well, then you can just, you know, change and say, well, no, I want more. That's what I want. But if the guy comes in way a lot higher than you're expecting, it's like, sweet, I can either get more, or I can just say, you know, that's good enough. So anyway, so Laban has these two daughters, and the name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. So Leah's eyes were delicate, but Rachel was beautiful of form and appearance. Now, a lot of commentators have a little bit of issue with this, what eyes were delicate. Some suggest maybe she was blue-eyed, and the thing back there would be the dark brown eyes, and so maybe a little bit inferior maybe. Some said maybe bad eyesight or something, and that was delicate. But you know, to understand the context is we don't really need to know what her eyes look like, because it says, but Rachel was beautiful of form and appearance. So right away we've got this contrast, so it's not too difficult. Especially if you're a guy, you know, okay, eyes, form and appearance, got it, you know, it's not difficult. So, now Jacob loved Rachel, so he said, so I will serve you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter. So they come to terms, you know, here's the deal. 7 years. And then Laban's probably thinking, wow, 7 years free labor out of this guy. Awesome. This is sweet. So, and Laban says to him, yeah, it is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to another man. Stay with me. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, but they seemed only a few days to him because of the love he had for her. So Laban's, thinking, well, here's a chance he can marry into a good family. He knows that Jacob comes from a wealthy family. He's obviously got some good character, or character that Laban sort of appreciates and can kind of understand. And yeah, I'll give her to you. So basically, he served 7 years. Now, 7 years is quite a long time, I would think. I mean, our engagement was 9 months, and quite frankly, I think it was like 8.5 months too long. But anyway, he's on the hook here for 7 years. So basically, this is how his dowry. He doesn't have anything to pay to have this wedding. So basically, it's 7 years of labor. But they seem like only a few days to him because of the love he had for her. Paul tells us love is patient. Well, here we see a perfect example of what love should be like. It's patient. It's waiting. It's not in a rush. It's not in a hurry. I think that's the biggest thing with our culture today. It's everybody's in too big of a hurry. The whole concept, I don't know, I think I should date her for, we'll live together for 5 years or whatever, make sure it's going to work out, and then we'll get married. But that just creates a whole bunch of extra baggage and everything else, and that's not the way God intended it. And so that's just not going to work out. So basically, he's greatly in love with her, and it's just a few days to him. So then Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife, for my days are fulfilled, that I may go into her, And Laban gathered together all the men of the place and made a feast. Now it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah, his daughter, and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. So, 7 years are up. Jacob comes to Laban and says, done deal. You know, I started on this date. It's now this date, 7 years later. Give me my wife. And Laban says, great, a wedding. Yes, let's have a wedding. Let's have a big feast, a big party. Gathers together all the men of the place. They make this big feast. And they're celebrating. It goes into the evening. It's getting quite late. And basically, Laban pulls his fast one. And in their culture, the women, the bride would be totally decked out. You know, they'd be totally covered up. You'd be able to see. You couldn't tell what you were getting. And she'd be totally covered from head to toe. And being dark and stuff like that. So, you know, I guess, I don't know, it's kind of hard to imagine how this could possibly happen. But basically, this is what happens. So they consummate their relationship, their marriage. And Laban gave his maid Zilpah to his daughter, Leah, as a maid, which was also a customary thing. If they had a maid to give, they would help out by giving a maid just to help the daughter out. Help the bride. So it came to pass in the morning that, behold, surprise, it was Leah. So Jacob goes to Laban and says, what is this you have done to me? What, was it not Rachel that I served you? Why then have you deceived me? Now it's interesting because here we see how Jacob was a deceiver and how he deceived his brother 2 times. And now the thing's being played out on him. And we're going to see that, you know, I think if it was me, I'd be like, I'd be just fuming. I'd be want to beat up on the guy or something, right? But at this point, I think the Holy Spirit tweaked his conscience and says, you know what, Jacob? And Jacob's going, yeah, I know, yeah, my brother, yeah, my elder brother. I did the same thing to him twice. No wonder he's out to kill me. But because the Bible in Galatians here, chapter 6, verse 8, God has a universal principle, and whatever a man sows, so shall he reap. For he who sows to his flesh will of the flesh reap corruption, but he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life. The bottom line is, whatever we do, it's going to come back. At some point in time, it's going to come back on us because this is a universal principle. And this doesn't just apply to relationships, to people, and to our spirit. You can take this all the way right through creation. You know, as you know, I'm kind of into bees, and I kind of like bees. And I think the reason is that they work so hard, and they got like a never die attitude. Like, it doesn't matter what the weather's like, they're always out there. They're always giving her, right? But when I open the hive up, I don't find mangoes or cherries in there, right? I mean, that would be really kind of freaky. That would maybe kind of different. But no, I find honey. Why? Because bees make honey. A farmer plants potatoes, he gets potatoes. He doesn't get corn or anything else. So what gets sown, and that's just the way it works. So this is more or less payback time. This is now God working through Jacob, pointing out Jacob's faults here. So, and Laban said in verse 26, he said, I must not be, sorry, let me start that again. It must not be done so in our country. So now he's going to come up with an excuse. Why does that happen? It's not done so in our country to give the younger before the firstborn. Fulfill her week, and we will give you this one also for the service, which you will serve with me still another 7 years. So a sweet deal for Laban. He got his older sister married off to this guy, who he probably thinks quite highly of. And now he gets another 7 years of free labor from this guy for the younger daughter. And in this we also see this whole thing, fulfill her week. Now when we were in Daniel chapter 9, the whole idea of week, in Hebrew they got weeks of days like we do, but they got weeks of years. So this is referring to 7 years, a week of years. So 7 years is how long this is going to be. So Jacob did so and fulfilled her week. So he gave him his daughter Rachel as a wife also. And now this time Laban gives his maid Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as a maid. Then Jacob also went into Rachel, and he also loved Rachel more than Leah. And he served with Laban still another 7 years. So in other words, there's a 14-year deal. He's now got 2 wives instead of 1. And it says here that he loved Rachel more than Leah. Now, in a marriage, relationships of any kind, I guess, but marriage is the one that's most pronounced, most profound. If you start a marriage under the wrong circumstances or under deceit or anything else, where does it go from there? It usually goes downhill. If there's no trust there, if there's, like I say, deceit going on, and I think that's one reason when couples live together, it just becomes a train wreck. It's all this extra baggage and stuff like that. So what we're going to see now is the fact that he's got these two women in his life. And God said, it's a man and a woman. The 2 become one flesh. It doesn't say anything about, 2 or more become one flesh. So once again, we're going to see more trouble down the road here with Jacob and both his wives, especially in the next chapter. It gets really, these 2 girls really go at it. It's just terrible, actually. But so Leah, so another 7 years. So here we see why polygamy doesn't work. It just doesn't work. Jesus said that a man cannot serve 2 masters. You can't. You're going to love the one and hate the other one, or you're going to despise the one and where are we at here? And no one can serve 2 masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will be loyal to the one and despise the other one. That's in Matthew 6:24. So having 2 wives is just not part of the plan. It's not going to work. And so now in the next verse here, in verse 31, the Lord saw that Leah was unloved. He opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. Now, you could substitute unloved with hated, because opposite of love is hate. So if she's unloved, so in the course of one verse here, we see Jacob going from, he loved Rachel more to actually hating Leah. And then there again, if we look at the circumstances, he was deceived in getting Leah in the first place. He never really wanted Leah, and it was sort of a dirty trick that got played on him. And because Leah could have taken a stand and said, you know what, Dad, this isn't right. I'm not going to do this. Da 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 da. Or we could look at Rachel too. What was going through Rachel's mind at the time with, she wanted to marry Jacob. So why didn't she take a stand? Possibly because the father had such power over the family. Maybe she was more or less, just being submissive to him. But anyway, so the Lord saw that Leah was unloved. So he opens her womb. So Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said, "The Lord has surely looked on my affliction. Now therefore my husband will love me." So here, quite often in a marriage situation, it's not working out. Now let's have some kids. Let's get something else going here to help things out. Which the marriage has got problems. It doesn't really help anything. It just makes matters worse. So she has this son named Reuben, and she names him basically. Reuben means looked or look, because God has seen my affliction, and now maybe my husband will love me. Well, then she conceives again and bore a son, and said, because the Lord has heard that I am unloved, he has therefore given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. So she has another son, and this time names him Simeon, hearing or heard. And once again, she's hopeful that this is going to change their relationship. And now my husband's going to love me. I gave him 2 sons. And in their culture, women bearing children is a big deal, and bearing sons is even a bigger deal. You know, I've heard stories where they all get together, the woman's about to give birth and that, they got a big party going on, and then the midwife comes out and says it's a girl, everybody packs up and goes home. You know, but if it's a boy, oh man, they celebrate until the cows come home. So anyway, having kids is a big deal, and so she called his name Simeon. So now she conceives again. So now she has a third son, and his name was Levi, and Levi means join. So, and she conceived again and bore a son, and after Levi, and now once again she has another son named Levi, and she's hopeful that her husband's going to love her, but it's still the same, nothing changes. And then by the time she has her fourth son, she names him Judah, and Judah means praise. And basically she's finally saying, now I will praise the Lord for giving me these children. And more or less resigning herself to the fact that her husband just doesn't love her. So we've kind of gone through, and we've seen how, you know, Jacob's been progressing. He had his experience in Luz, which he turns around to call Bethel, which means the house of God. And then he's in here, he's got his wives. God's moving the program ahead, because as we're going to see in the next chapter, there's conflict going on with the wives, with the 2 sisters, between the competition and, I don't know, the hatred and the jealousy and all this that's going on. They're going to end up with more children, and so next week should be interesting still. It keeps going on, you know, and how God works through our circumstances. And I think the biggest lesson, the biggest takeaway about this whole thing is, number one is, we reap what we sow. So if we're going to sow to the flesh, whatever that might be, it's just going to come back to haunt us. But if we sow to the Spirit love and grace to other people, we're going to reap love and grace. You know, you get back that, you know, you hate somebody, they're going to probably hate you back. So love and grace go hand in hand. And yeah, I mean, it's just that's how one ends it up. Take me back, and Steve will be back next week. Looking forward to that. Actually, he's being back early. I guess he's just about time to.